For this session, right, so I'm going to introduce you to two speakers, which is also very powerful speakers. So first of all, we have Mino Lammers. So he's the founder of Proptech for Good, and also he's the membership organization. The real estate industry accelerates sustainable ambitions through technology adoption. And he's also the mentor at Reach UK. He's a member of the leadership board of Tech Climate. And he's also the guest lecturer at the Amsterdam School of Real Estate. And also we have the second panelist, which is Dr. Daniel. So he's the co-founder of Ray Group and startupreneurnomy.com. So a mentor and a serial entrepreneur and investor in tech startups. So, and he's also the president of the Malaysian Proptech Association and council member of the Global Proptech Alliance. So today's topic would be on smart cities and PropTech, the perfect SDG and ESG playground. So Dr. Daniel and Mino, I will pass the floor to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Toby. Thank you. Allow me to say thank you to Puana Sniza for attending our panel just ended. And a big thank you to Meno, because I know how busy he is running after all the errant non-compliance players in Europe, and for taking up the time. Now is early morning in Netherlands, right, Menno?
That's true. Thank you, Daniel, for having me. It's always a pleasure to join. So and yes, it's morning, 10 minutes before 9 a.m. So you know, the sun is coming up, the sun is shining here. So let's roll.
Yes. We are not consuming energy, not much at least, not much. We try to be as more sustainable as possible. Good. And the topic of today centered, focused on smart cities, which are really, they have become, let's say, thanks to the 2.5 years of pandemic that we have been going through, the world, the global economy have been going through, have been teaching us that we need to really start implementing and enforcing in an effective and efficient manner technology, digital transformation in our cities, bringing them to become smart. And what I keep on repeating is smart cities. Okay, what cities are, what urban centers are? A bunch of brick and cement where people are living in. So we need to bring in technology from one side, but be very much human-centric in our approach, because people are the one using, living, playing, working, having fun, and whatever else in these cities. How you, as an expert in SDG implementation and ESG compliance, have been seeing the change happening in Europe? Is there a change happening, first of all? And assuming that the reply is yes, partially, maybe, forthcoming soon, how do you see this happening?
Yeah, it's a good question. You know, the last years, people get more aware of certain topics, or you know, health and well-being, of course, by COVID. Currently in Europe, the energy. In global, we talk about the interest rates and inflation. Food is going to be under pressure. That's what I expect. And we already see some signals. So people get being challenged on different ways. And as you maybe know, people can only handle one crisis at the same time. And now we have several. So people are also like, where to go. So, and then the foundation is going to crumble. So one of the things which is happening now is searching for meaning, but they know where to go. So they know where the new world and the new economy will go. Some will hold the old because, they know what they have. and that's the general part. When you look at cities, one of the things I see that cities give back their cities give back their the cities give back the city to people, so they move away cars, for example, in the city centers, for different reasons. One is air quality. When you look at the WHO requirements for air quality, 99% globally doesn't hit that requirement. So we are living in polluted air. When you reduce cars, you reduce, and of course it's different between electric cars and the diesel gasoline cars. Bringing more nature into the city. So the city centers getting more nature. One of the, for example, in the Champs-Élysées, they also want to reduce cars and bring in more green and park, making it more smart. But there's also a movement into smart cities. Smart is pushed by the technology companies. And it's really about, safe security, getting more flows, more green flows by cars. So really managing. But smart can also be very stupid in that way. So what you see now is how can we unlock human potential? How can we connect people on another way? Because we can have a very smart city, but if nobody's using it, it doesn't work. That's the same with solutions in buildings, or have a smart home, or you have great platform to buy and sell, and you can do a lot of things, but you don't know. That's the same with your phone. You're using it. You can call people, but maybe there are features to text with WhatsApp, or but a lot of people don't know what you can do with the technology. So the cities are pushing. There is a great movement, for example, in the C40, 100 cities which are focused on net zero. But a lot of cities, you can't compare them because some are doing great on circular economy, for example, Amsterdam. Some have great governance on that side, for example, Oslo. So there are a lot of things moving and shaking.
Yeah.
I know the mayors, they were in, I thought it was Buenos Aires 1 week or 2 weeks ago, to learn from each other about how to go to net zero, for example. Of course, it's one of the big topics. We have to be aware that net zero is not only about energy and CO2, because that's very narrow, And one critical point on my side, if we're going to work on human-centric approach, which is very logical, we're doing that because we're humans. And maybe it's not so logical because it was not a human-centric approach for a long time. But if we stay on the top of the pyramid, for example, on planet Earth, and we say, hey, we're the big king, we're the lion, and the rest has to serve us, I think we have to turn it around and going upside down and say, hey, how can we be planet, or at least human planet centric, and maybe planet centric, because then we are part of nature. So what I see also is we are in general degenerative. We are using wood, bricks and mortar, everything is going down. So now we are in a status quo with a lot of challenges, with diversity and inclusion, with the climate challenge, with indoor air quality. So there are a lot of topics right now, a lot of crises, so to say. We can sustain them, with the Sustainable Development Goals, but then we are buying time. But now we also have, if we break it down, we can also build it up. So we have to go to restore it and to regenerate. And then we're going to tap in another part, because it means it's not about laws and regulations and technology, but then it's about mindset and unlearn what we learned and become again part of nature. Because we lost connection with men and women. Normally we were tribes and we need each other to survive. And now we can say, hey, I'm good. Hey, Daniel, you're also good. We don't need each other. And yes, it's nice to work together. So that's the loss of, people together, men, women, acts, give it a name, human beings. We also lost our connection with nature. We are now on top of it and say, hey, we can take care of it. We want to manage nature. In the Netherlands, every square meter is organized.
Yeah.
And I read something recently that there was a tribe, I thought it was the Aboriginals. And the question was, what is nature? And that person said, it's an area where humans were not involved for many years.
Yeah,
so,
that's correct.
we think we manage everything. Cities are great when everything goes well. But when there's war, when there is disease, you don't want to be in a city. I saw a lot of people when they left the city. I know stories from people in New York. They lived very small because it was so high price. And then COVID hits and they went to other areas because they didn't want to sit on 10 square meters.
Yeah.
And they have long rows. They couldn't go to the supermarket. And then you can say, how smart is the city? So it's interesting what's happening, and I think we now more aware about our health, our own hygiene. We are more in Europe, at least in Europe, we are very aware now, and we get more because winter is coming on our side. What's the impact of energy? If I go to the store and I want to buy isolation products, for example, some products are hard to get because a lot of people now invest small amounts or big amounts in energy in isolation products, for example. And that's the low-hanging fruit. You don't have to be very smart in that way because a lot of things are already there. For the low-hanging fruit, and of course we can also discuss what kind of technology does to be innovated, on the R&D part, which we need in the future. But a lot of things we know we already have because, for example, air pollution, heat stress. Yeah, plant some trees or grow some trees. Plant is one, but we have to grow them. And we can reduce heat stress. We can create more value in our property because research says when you have more trees in your environment, prices go up. Because but that's what it is. Less heat stress on the streets, but also in the environments. It can reduce, I thought, 12 degrees or something like that. 12, if that's the point. But no, most of the cities think, we need less trees because they give leaves, and then we have to maintain them. That costs money.
Exactly,
and it's another way of thinking and approaching things. And probably we're also going to hit some other examples. Think on another way, but that's what I observe.
We are from one side, humans are aware of the situation in which we are. From the other side, we are acting in almost the opposite direction. We talk about green areas and park in cities, and we keep on deforesting areas, transforming beautiful forest reserve in a pocket of cement and high-rise building.
True.
Somehow is a necessity because urban centers are growing all around the world. The number of urban centers with more than 10 million inhabitants is going to shoot up in the next 10 years. Urbanization rates are extremely high all around the world and will increase in future. What to me doesn't make that much of sense. Point one is we talk about smart city, we talk about human-centric approach to smart city as if cities are not built by humans. But we are so smart that we are the one building cities which are not human-centric, which have not been human-centric for the past 50 years or 60 years. And now we need to retrofit with a lot of challenges, no doubt, these non-human-centric dumb cities and make them becoming smart ones. First disappointment. Second big disappointment that I keep on thinking about, I've been messaging you a bit, texting you a bit of pointers on this. We all talk about, we have been inflating the use of the world being sustainable. Now there is a sustainable toilet paper, sustainable plastic, sustainable fuel, everything is sustainable. APPS2022 is very sustainable because we are all in Zoom. We have been reducing, we are carbon positive, not carbon negative event, all right? But sustainable means what? Sustainable means maintaining a status quo, basically. Maintaining an environment, maintaining what is the current situation. Do we like the current situation? No, we don't. So we bring in words and concepts such as regenerative development, which is, to me, a must to be looked at for the development of future smart cities. More regenerative, and I wouldn't say regenerative, maybe it should be more eco-friendly practices. Give you some example. The world is going crazy about EV, electric vehicle. Tesla is selling electric vehicle like nobody business. You go in China and you cannot hear car approaching you because, or motorbike approaching you because the majority of them are electrical, right? What will happen within the next 5 years or 10 years with these lithium batteries coming to an exhaust date? Where they will go? What will happen with it? What will happen with solar panels, exhausted solar panels? There is a lifespan for this. What will happen with this morning? I was discussing with some of my MPA fellow at 12:30. We enter in a half an hour discussion, and Frank was mentioning in one turbine, wind turbine, there is a motor, an alternator to produce power, which needs 50 50 kg of magnet, I think, or 500 kg of magnet, for which several tons of rare earth needs to be excavated from earth. So we practice unsustainable practices such as mining, extracting rare earth, transforming and refining rare earth to produce magnet, to produce a renewable source of energy. Is it 100% renewable? Question mark. Shouldn't be the time for us to change a bit the direction, to become a bit more aware of all these challenges and find more long-term sustainable solution. We are looking at the very short term in this moment. We resolve an issue, we resolve a challenge without thinking to the challenges that our solution today will produce within the next 10 years.
Yeah.
Don't you agree on this? Is a bit an approach with an eye to the future. I don't want to find a solution that is good today and horrible tomorrow. Yeah. Otherwise, we fall into the same mistake of our fathers and mothers in the past.
Yeah, that's true. You know, I'm also wrestling with this, you know, because that's how it feels. I don't want to say I have the answer, but what I also you know, we're not going, or at least a lot of people, we are not going back to the Middle Ages or even going back into time, you know. So there is a new context. But what I see right now is that struggle in general. When you dive into the topic of the Sustainable Development Goals, they talk about externalities. So the windmill on sea, for example, in general, it's great. You have renewable energy by wind. But when you dive into the topic, you see the concrete, which is placed in the sea, can kill marine life. At the other hand, the concrete can at a certain moment be also a place where fish and sea animals can also create life. So on the longer term, it can also have a positive impact. When you look at the pile, it's steel. Embodied carbon, negative. Then you have the turbine, you have, you know, the wheel, negative. Then you have the line to the land, negative. And at the end, you have a lot of subsidiaries, at least here, in that way, negative, because it doesn't have a positive business case. And that's also, you know, we're very focused on the business case. So see business as for ourselves, but we have to move to shared value and at least to system value and say, okay, how can we are business, we are part of society and part of the environment. And can we create a positive value, can we create system value on a positive way? And it's hard because we come from an industrial age. So we think in producing, consuming, because that's the inflation. Yes. That's how the whole system is organized right now. Also with the petrodollar, you know, we're dependent on oil and gas. And you see in the industry, the regenerative movement, for example. So building capacity for self-sustaining abundance of life. But that's, you know, then we have to be part of nature and rethink a lot of things. But we still have what we created in the past. But I want to share two examples, which are, for me, very insightful, how we can do things on a different way. So one, for example, is a innovation. It's in the East Gate building in Zimbabwe. They have a building, a big shopping mall, without an HVAC system, so no air conditioning and heating. And that's interesting because this is a big shopping mall. But what they learned, or they were inspired by the termites in nature. The termites have a big belt.
Yeah.
And in daytime, it can be plus 40. And in the night, it can be minus. But in that termite belt, it's the same temperature. And of course, those termites, they have AI and blockchain and IoT. No, they're just using nature, you know? So they had a smart, and I think that's really intelligent or smart. They created a nice system. So they managed that temperature. So they learned from the termites to create a building. So they didn't have to invest in 3.5 million of HVAC system. So what they did right now also, they don't have to maintain them. So that also reduces cost. So they also lowered the rent for the retailers. So that's, you know, learning from nature, creating something, but also have a positive impact on the retailers and society, you know. I don't want to say that's the example, but it's an other way of thinking than we are used to, because we think, oh, we have to create 4 walls, a roof, an HVAC system, electricity, because we look at how others are doing that. So that's one example. The other one is, for example, a river in Seoul in Korea. There was a big place with a lot of traffic. They reduced, or they moved away the road, and they brought back a river. And the thing is that it has a lot of positive impact. Now it's flood protection. The biodiversity increased with more than 600%. It reduces the urban heat. It creates more people on public transport. The price of land goes up with 30 to 50%. Of course, we can discuss affordable housing, etc. But you know, just to give the impact, the number of businesses in that area grew with 3.5%, just to move away a road and bring back nature.
Yeah.
So think about that, you know, that's
yeah. It's a balancing. It's a balancing return to the past, kind of. And one thing that we definitely all need to do is unlearn and relearn how to look at nature. The example of the termite was perfect, absolutely. Relook at replacement of cementification practices with more green and regenerative ones. In Malaysia is a country, thanks God we don't have an earthquake, but we have very often floods. Flash floods during heavy rain season. We have monsoon season.
Yeah.
And it happens. It keep on happening, and it appears that authorities are not doing anything on it, even though they are. There is an action on the flood control, but still is I would say a bit in the wrong direction. The very first point with flood control is you do not build where there is a flood-prone area. You go outside the flood-prone area. You transform the flood, you leverage on the flood to build, as you are saying, it happened in Seoul, a river. you bring a natural component within the city. One thing that I would like to ask you is this: Amsterdam. Amsterdam has been the first city becoming smart in the 90s, I think it was 80s or 90s. Amsterdam was declared first smart city in the world. For all the attendees, Netherlands is a place where there are more bicycles than cars and motorbikes. People are used to go around with bicycles. Is also the country of the windmills. By the and the Edam cheese, which is delicious, by the way. But is a country which has been having good practices, consciously or unconsciously, for many decades nowadays. I was a kid when my parents brought me the very first time. I think I was 8 or 9 years old. So we are talking about several years ago, say so. We talk about 60s, end of the 60s, early 70s. And I can remember very clearly Amsterdam being a city with more trams than vehicles, electric trams. Public transportation was already there. Bicycles were used really everywhere. So Netherlands is by definition a smart country. How can we learn from the experience of Netherlands? What is the message that a citizen from Netherlands, founder of the Proptech for Good Alliance, green and eco warrior like you, can give to Southeast Asia, considering that Southeast Asia is now approaching what Amsterdam has been approaching decades ago?
Yeah, you know, the Netherlands also has challenges, and thank you, of course, being that positive about the Netherlands and especially Amsterdam. Of course, I'm not living in Amsterdam, by the way, but I know the place a bit. Of course, it's built on piles. It's a big part of the Netherlands is below sea level. You know, we were fighting against the water for years. But now we also made a movement, and that's also one of the things I already said on a different way. You can fight against water, but you can also live with the water. For example, creating a river in the city. We also have a lot more. Sometimes the rain is more heavy than in the last years. So one of the things we're doing right now is you get subsidy from the government when you create a system that the water from the roof is not going to the sewer, to the main, you know, to push away all the water, but bring it in your garden if you have a garden. So then the water is going into the earth instead of the infrastructure, which is already heavy overloaded. So you have to think, how can we work with nature, being part of nature in that way? Also, you know, the circular part in Amsterdam, they are working on the donut economy. I don't know the details, to be honest, but there are a lot of stranded assets when you look on a good way. And I always say the ones who are harvesting buildings, we're not talking about demolishing buildings, because now we have to think about, you know, harvest a building. They are the gold diggers of the future, because if you know where to go, and there are already platforms popping up, hey, which building will be end of life or which should be going down, we can use those materials. So, for example, there is in Amsterdam, there is a prison. They don't use that prison right now. They're going to change that, to redevelop that area, and 98%, so almost 100% of all the materials from that prison, they're going to use in the project again.
Wow.
I don't want to say that's the solution, because you also have to break it down, to harvest that, to transform it. It costs energy, but at least it's better than digging in the ground and find some new materials. So, for example, the doors for the prison, they're going to use for the bridges, for example. So those simple things, you know, I think is great. One of the movements right now in the Netherlands, and we're not unique, I think, but it's another way of thinking, is when we extract CO2 out of our buildings. Of course, you can also do wooden buildings, because also in the Netherlands there are a lot of concrete. When you suck it out, CO2 is not, it's not a poison. There are some things in the air which are more poisoned than CO2, because CO2, we need CO2 for life, because CO2, the soil is doing great things with CO2. The sea is doing great things with CO2. Plants are doing great things with CO2, but now we are against CO2 because we have to go net zero. Of course, we have to reduce energy and that kind of things because we are addicted to energy. But we also have to think, okay, if we suck out that CO2, we bring it, they already do it in the West, in the Netherlands, but that's from the oil side. They bring the CO2, they bring it to the glass houses where they produce food and flowers and that kind of things. And they export that. Of course, that's the plain and negative, but okay, but just another cycle. So if we suck out CO2, we bring it to the plants, and those plants are, for example, wheat or elephant grass or some other materials, and we can produce isolation products to isolate our houses, then we have a nice circle, I think. We're not there yet, but I know in the Netherlands there's a big lobby going on to build more with wood and bio-based materials and going more on the biomimicry part. On the other hand, we also have digital technology, and I think digital technology is great because it gives a lot of insights. We can reduce and buy time, you know, to manage our HVAC system, for example, or clean or being aware of indoor air quality. But also they expect, because of the rise of technology, now I thought it was 7% of all the CO2 is created by the ICT digital industry. In the next years, it will be 14%. So if we can reduce 50% and we just plus another 7%, I think it's okay. We can still discuss that.
Yeah.
But if you be aware that if you're making chips, they're making chips on some sort of pancake called a wafer. They have to clean that wafer they do it with a gas. That gas is 17,000 times more polluted than CO2. So being aware, you know, we can't talk about it because digital or tech, we don't see it, so it's not there. But if we look at the externalities, like the windmill we talked about, you know, and the biodiesel and the PV. Oh, by the way, in the Netherlands, they are working on circular PV panels.
Yes.
So it's better than, you know, the ones you buy, you use and you throw them away, like the whole economy is organized. So what we need is also to reconnect our left and our right brain, because now it's what you can't measure, you can't manage. It's very manageable and operation excellence, but that comes from the industrial age. Now it's time, and I think you addressed it right, is to being creative, rethink or unlearn what we learned, and being creative, you know, and think on another way and learn from each other. Not, you know, the Netherlands is great, but I believe that there are so many smart people in Malaysia. They have their perspective, and that's also why we joined forces, Malaysian Proptech Association, Proptech for Good, but also 39 other associations, so we can exchange and learn from each other, because I don't believe that the Netherlands is the only great country.
Yeah.
We are all great countries from our own perspective. We all have our challenges. And of course, we can bring solutions to Malaysia for floating or water, but that doesn't mean Malaysia can't bring something to the Netherlands or to Nigeria or Colombia or to Japan or to South Africa or to where I was last week, Lithuania. I think, we can learn from each other, but we have to be open and be curious.
Yeah.
And open to learn something and to see perspective, because one of my biggest trap is, hey, it's different than the Netherlands, so it's bad. No, it's not. It's another way of looking, and that's a big transition for me since the last 2-3 years. Right now, it's so eye-opening. So I'm also happy, to be here, and tell my story, how I see it and what I observe. But probably, other people observe other things, and that's great. Great to have this event so people can share their observations and what they feel and how they. So keep moving forward, Daniel.
Definitely, we are not going to stop here. Even more, we will move forward with more of this type of engagement, this type of exchange of ideas and experience. Is all matter, as I was saying, I believe, to really learn how to leverage on our weaknesses. Right? When I was a student, it was quite common to do some SWOT analysis, right? And as a businessman, I've been bringing in the SWOT analysis again. And one of the main principles of a SWOT analysis is that all the weaknesses are also, majority of them are also great opportunities.
True.
In the analysis. So our approach to the challenge of ESG and SDG implementation within the ESG network framework is, point one, to be able to manage our implementation in such a way that will allow us, the implementation will allow us to measure our impact. Point one. Point two, understand how to look into all the weaknesses that we have in this moment, the challenges that we have, the natural challenges, not from a how do I eliminate it, but from a how can I leverage on it, as you were giving the very clear example on CO2, and I fully agree with that. Plants need CO2 for their cycle, vital cycle. And the more they have, the faster is the cycle. We always ask, how comes Holland has such beautiful flowers? Probably because you are feeding them with extra CO2.
Sorry, I told you a secret, but that's one of our secrets.
Now we found out. But again, is a different approach, is a different way of looking at challenges. And I'm quite excited, if I have to be honest, by looking at the next 10, 15 years, because those next 10, 15 years will be highly strategic for the future of humanity, basically. Yeah. And I believe, I am 100% convinced that we will all be able to come in with a bombastic solution. I have been talking so much around Asia and around the world, basically, about this with professionals from US, South America, and everywhere else in the world. And I've been hearing amazing case studies, amazing success stories. So we will keep the discussion rolling. Now we have Toby that has been highlighting herself, not to join the conversation, but kick us out. and we are right on the dot of 4:30. So I would like to take this opportunity, Menno, to thank you again very, very much. Keep doing the great job you're doing, the fantastic contribution you are doing with PropTech for Good. You have MPA, Malaysian Proptech Association, full support. And there will be more occasion like this one to interact. And I hope sooner or later, we will also be able, besides becoming, as we had, very good virtual friend, to see each other physically.
Well,
Definitely.
that would be great. And thank you for having me, and keep on the good work. I know you're very ESG and sustainable development minded. I think it's a very great framework to work on. Gives you a big why you're doing it, and real estate and technology are just tools to make a positive impact on those societal and environmental challenges.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
thank you, Daniel, and of course
Thank you so much. Yep. Thank you.
Thank you, Menno, for being with us.
Thank you, Dr. Daniel.